Welcome to the poetry session of the three-day international conference, Entangled Englishes in Translocal Spaces. Dr. Ahmar Mahboob is the speaker of this session, who is an associate professor of the Department of Linguistics at the University of Sydney. Dr. Mahboob is keenly interested in the application of language sciences to the development issues. His primary research interest is on examination of policies, practices, and implications of language variation in local and global contexts. In pursuing his goal, Ahmar draws from and contributes to a range of linguistics and applied linguistics traditions, theories, and methodologies. In 2019, Dr. Mahboob was named as Australia's Research Field Leader, English Language and Literature, in the Australian's Research magazine. In addition to academic works, he also writes poems and fictions. Today, Dr. Ahmar will recite some of his poems and will also be giving his colonial and post-colonial reflections on them. The session is titled Poster Boy. Dear audience, Dr. Ahmar Mahboob.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for organizing this conference and having the vision of organizing a poetry session, something that is novel. And I think more conferences need to do it because it brings in a reflective perspective to looking at serious and complex issues around the profession that we work in, and to try to address these through new genres and different genres, not the genres that are dictated to us by the genre architects, the genre engineers, and the genre Nazis, right? We don't want the genre Nazis to tell us how we do things and how we write things. We have the freedom and the agency to think about our own modalities. So you were saying that I write academic papers and things. Actually, I haven't written an academic paper for over a year now. And the last one I've written, I actually haven't published it yet. I haven't decided when I will publish it. And I don't plan to write any more academic papers if I can avoid it throughout my life. Instead, I do essays and poetry. You know, how many people actually read your research paper? If you're lucky and you're cited heavily, then maybe a few people read it. But they only read it to cite you, and often they cite you wrong, right? So whereas a short poem just goes across the world, and you don't know where it ends up because it just has that influence that it can carry from one person to another instantaneously to groups and things. So in a sense, and it goes to the people, so it actually connects to the people. Right now, the session is called Poster Boy, and I will actually start with reading this poem called Poster Boy. And let me tell you a bit about when I wrote it and the context of writing it. Uh, I'm one of those lucky people. In 2018, for half a year in 2018, the whole of the second half, starting from July till the end of December, I was lucky enough to be able to get a full leave, a long service leave with full pay. 6 months of no work and full pay. For the first time in my entire life, I had money. I have a passport that allows me to travel anywhere I want to, and I have the time to do it. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do some backpacking. And I had a conference at Cambridge at the Gulf Forum, Gulf Regional Forum, and I did the conference in Cambridge, and then from there I went to Scotland, and then spent a bit of time with my uncle and my aunt, and then hopped onto a plane, flew into Amsterdam, and then just took trains and buses all the way across to Southern Europe, went to Armenia. I spent months doing this. And as I was doing it, I was observing, in a sense, I was reflecting on my own life, right? All of a sudden, I was a nobody as a backpacker, which was fantastic. I wanted to experience that. I was not Ahmar Mahboob, the professor, you know, the academic, blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to talk to me necessarily. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows who I am or what I do. I'm just another person, another guy on the street, which anonymity was fantastic because that allowed me to reflect on what had happened to me and how who I am and who I've become are two different things. So I wrote this a poem called Poster Boy, and let me share a screen with you. Uh, okay, allow Zoom to share a screen. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, hopefully now. Yes, now. Okay.
Yes.
So, all right, now you should be able to see it. So this was published in 2018. I wrote this poem in 2018. And his poster boy, stop, Ahmar, stop. What are you doing? What have you become? Remember your roots. Remember your people. Remember your goals. Yes, some applaud you as a success. They consider you a model, someone they look up to, and sometimes want to become. They are fooled by illusions endowed upon a poster boy, a poster celebrating how colonial subjects shine when they play white men's games in a white man's world. A technicolored advertisement empowering hegemonic discourse. Right? I wrote this earlier. I still use words in the poetry which I wouldn't use in today. When if I write this today, I wouldn't use the word hegemony. I would replace it by easier ways of understanding things. But anyway, stop, Ahmed, stop. Reflect, rethink, redirect. Remember your people. Remember your goals. Success doesn't come until your people succeed. So I realized that essentially what had happened to me in the pursuit of success, of pursuing education, going to the US, getting my PhD, getting my job, getting my tenure, all this stuff, is that I was become a poster boy. And I was promoting things. I was writing research papers, being aware that my research papers don't really have an impact. They're just stuff that I'm writing based on data that I collect and analyze. But there is not really observational reality to it. But yet I was doing it because that was the game that we all played. That was what we had to do in order to succeed. So I did it and kept doing it. But then I realized, what's the point of doing stuff when that has no impact? And then I start questioning, why is it that we don't have impact of our work? Why is it, for example, if we are doing language studies, why is it that we have been working on and documenting indigenous and aboriginal languages around the world for the last hundreds of years, and yet those languages keep dying out, right? So I started asking simple questions. If the work that we have been doing for the last 100 and 150 years was supposed to produce results that changed and improved the human condition and the environmental systems and the ecosystems, then why are we not seeing those results? Then if you're not seeing the results, then the conclusion is pretty simple. Then perhaps what we're doing is wrong. And so that took me into really thinking around questions of, what it is, how do we actually understand knowledge, what do we think of education? And I started doing a lot of observational thinking, which means looking at and identifying things in nature and observing from nature and learning from nature, observing natural phenomenon, observing humans in indigenous communities, living in indigenous communities, becoming a part of an indigenous community, becoming a family member and living with them as a family member, right? Really sort of changing the way I think and observe and understand the world. And in doing that, I've been learning so much, and essentially a lot of my poetry and my notes come through this. So here's something I wrote. It's really short. Uh, and it says simply, through Indigenous education, young people develop independence and skills needed in community, right? You learn from the elders through observation. Your elders perform things in community. You learned by observing them. You learned how they did things well, and then they trained you, and then you learned how to do them well, and then you contributed to the community. But through modern education, we and our kids develop skills and they develop dependence that is needed by the corporations. That's why we all need jobs. We don't have skills. We can't live ourselves. We don't even have, I posted a question recently on the social media. Do we have books that tell us what the wild bush fruits and vegetables are in the region that you live? What can you go out and pick up in the bush and eat? We don't have any of that knowledge. That is the knowledge we would have learned from our grandparents and ancestors. But that is not the education we receive now. And that changes the very form of what we become. We become dependent. And if we become individually dependent and the educational system becomes dependent and our languages become dependent, then we are doomed and we are stuck. So part of the process is decolonizing of the knowledge making itself and decolonizing education, bringing the skills back, bringing in people's ability to understand where they live, understand the environment, or live with an observational reality through your 5 sensory systems, being able to do that. And it is time for us to learn through indigenous education and reform modern education. Why is there a reason that we depend so much on literacy, numeracy, when neither of these things are indigenous, right? We didn't have them in indigenous cultures. There is not a single indigenous language in Australia that had a counting system like we have today, or a literacy or a writing system. They just didn't have them. And yet all of the education and jobs and everything else is now, and employment is now determined based on whether you have the ability of literacy and numeracy. A skill that is not universal in humans around the world. Why is that's those set of skills being used for evaluation and measurement and distribution of resources? That is fundamentally discriminatory. We need to think about modalities and use of education where we bring in oral literacies and other traditions, poetry, other forms, drama, performances, plays, all those other things that really bring people in, give them skills and abilities to perform and engage in the world where they live and contribute to the communities where they live, right? Now, how did this all happen? I'll read you this poem that I wrote a while ago. It's called Splendid, Simply Splendid. And it's reflective of our part of the world. It has 2 parts, one in 1850s and one in 1940s. So it's 1850s first. Sir, the danger is increasing. The natives are resisting. How ignorant, how savage. They don't appreciate our attempts to salvage. How can they know what's best for them? How can they know what's best for them? Let's save them in our God's name. Burn their books, destroy their past. Let us teach them what we want. Introduce money, buy us friends, give us some wealth, give some wealth and lots of lands. Teach people religion to hate each other, break their union into different nations. Create new symbols, build new systems, change the ways they think and function. When this is done, come back to me and I will tell you what next can be. We now come into the 1940s, where we know we were given our symbolic independence, so-called. And of course, we know that that independence didn't mean much for many people. And so we had another independence later on, right? And we keep getting more and more independences. I don't know how that actually changes anybody's life, but we keep getting that. So anyway, in 1940s, sir, I am pleased to report our progress. Your directives have brought us success. The natives are divided and broken. They are killing each other in dozens. Splendid, simply splendid. And now for the next bits. Let us retire to our beautiful estate. Let our friends govern their new states. With our stories to guide their future, we can relax and let them suffer. Sell them books and let them know. If they want progress, they can come for more. Invite some natives, give them means. Turn them into posters for the rest to dream. When this is done, it will be seen. Those who fought us now fight in between. Splendid, simply splendid. Right, this poem actually has a lot. I can keep talking about it for hours itself. And you will notice, for example, there are references to education, there are references to language, there are references to symbols, because essentially humans, like pretty much any other creature that I've observed, use symbols to create associations and meanings, and then they share the symbols and use the shared symbols in order to be able to interact and exchange meanings and purposes, right? So symbols serve the key purpose. Now, as you know, in our region, we didn't actually have names of languages until the British came over, right? Even Urdu and Hindi, these names never existed. Bengali, Gujarati, these language names are recent, 100 years, 150 years, 200 years, not even more than that, right? All of these names, every time you create a name, you create an entity, you create a potential conflict. Now, this is really interesting because one of the observations I have in indigenous communities around the world, that indigenous communities around the world tend to have really limited vocabulary and few categories. That's why they don't necessarily have number systems or color systems. They have actually very limited and basic things, not because they cannot see colors or see the idea of numbers. The reason is because you don't need it. When you live with the same people in the same land geographically and have a range of a few hundred kilometers, you know everything. So you know everything and everything is known to you. So therefore, you don't need all that vocabulary and things. It is the human dependence on traveling far distances and engaging with people that are different in different contexts that you need to be able to have language to be able to bridge the gap of geography and experiences and histories, right? So it's really interesting how languages evolve differently in localized geographical settings and as opposed to languages that have vast and larger geographical ranges. Things change. Now, symbols work as a key purpose, and symbols is also what is used to exploit us, right? It is the one thing that is used to, it was weaponized really early. The European, the European colonizers realized the value of symbolic manipulation and manipulating symbols in order to shift ways of which people act and know and think and perform and behave. And they used the symbols in order to engineer social divisions and things. That is why I say that modern linguistics is not just nonsensical, it is based on colonial thinking. It's anthropocentric, it's human-centric. There's nothing to save there. We just have to abandon everything. There's nothing to save in a discipline that is based on human-centric, anthropocentric thinking. We need to get out of that human-centric thinking and think across a species. We need to think about co-evolution with different species rather than evolution of ourselves, right? And we need to use symbols carefully in order to do this. So, the next poem I will share with you is called Symbols. And I wrote this poem in multiple, in Boli. Boli is the word I use. I don't like the word Urdu or Hindi because when I say Boli, I can actually talk and communicate with a large number of people because I can fluctuate my Boli. Just like in Australia, when I live on land, I speak broken English. I don't speak Aboriginal English. We don't like that word Aboriginal English. Broken English is what we speak. Why? Because broken English has no need to, you don't need to conform to anything. There is no rules, there's no set vocabulary. You can change your things, you can do what you need to do in order to achieve your purpose. So we speak broken English. I can speak broken English with you if you like. maybe I will at some point, right? But I wrote this poem in Boli and then I actually translated it into English. And then what I did was I took the Boli and I wrote it in 3 different scripts. So you guys can see that. So if you see the screen, you will see that on the left-hand side is one Boli, one script, which is the English language with the English script and the English thing. And then on the other side, I say ek Boli, 3 scripts, right? 1 Boli, 3 scripts, right? So I'm going to read you the Boli version now. And as you read the Boli version, you will realize I'm reading the exact same words. The sounds I'm making are exactly the same, but these sounds are being represented by 3 different spelling systems, which are 3 different symbolic systems. So notice something that is mutually intelligible, which is how we define language, right? Mutually intelligible is being divided and broken down by use of an artificial writing system, which is non-universal. And it's a creation in order to break up people who have a common oral language, right? So that I can speak Hindi, but I cannot read Hindi, right? People can understand Urdu, but they can't write Urdu. But it's right. So you can, notice the trap, the use of symbols. So in a sense, it's symbols that we need to work through. So symbols हमें तोड़ते हैं, symbols हमें जोड़ते हैं. अगर तेरे मेरे symbols मिलते हों, तो हम दोस्त भी हो सकते हैं. मगर तेरे symbols मैं ना पहचानूं, तो तुम अजनबी ही हो सकते हो. सिंबल से हम अपनी दुनिया समझते हैं, सिंबल्स से हम जिंदगी जीते हैं। लैंग्वेज में आवाज और हुरूफ सिंबल्स, रिलीजन में लिबास और पकवान सिंबल्स, कल्चर में तो सब कुछ ही सिंबल्स, आर्ट, साइंस, यहां तक के मैथ में भी सिंबल्स हुक्मरान। सिंबल्स हैवानों और इंसानों की दुनिया बनाते हैं। कुछ के सिंबल्स यहां और मौजूद तक महदूद हैं और हमारे सिंबल्स हमें कहीं और कहां ले जाते हैं। सिंबल्स का अक्लमंदी से इस्तेमाल करो तो यहां से चांद और वापस भी आ सकते हो। सिंबल्स का ईमानदारी से इस्तेमाल करो तो दुनिया को खूबसूरत और खुशहाल बना सकते हो। सिंबल्स को इग्नोर करो तो लड़ो झगड़ो बदहाल रहो। सिंबल्स का गलत इस्तेमाल करो तो अपनी दुनिया खुद बर्बाद करो। सिंबल्स तो सिर्फ सिंबल्स हैं, उनके मायने हैं भी और नहीं भी। जब सिंबल्स में हम आहंगी हो तो जिंदगी जन्नत है। जब सिंबल्स बिगड़ जाएं तो जिंदगी जहन्नुम। And you notice how, of course, in reading this, I'm talking about symbols. Symbols are the core of how humans create and engage with the world around us. The symbols operate not just through language, that is in terms of sounds, they operate visually through art, through other representation, through being able to see things, through writing systems. They operate through taste, they operate through smells, they operate through touch, right? All of that is symbolic, right? We understand and we create meanings with those. We live our life through realizing, creating, and understanding and using symbols through using all our sensory systems and symbols together. So we need to move not just out of anthropocentric, human-centric thinking around language. We need to think around the use and creation of symbols and symbolic systems that operate across all our sensory systems, all 5 of the sensory systems, right? Bringing that all together. Now, I am conscious of time, so I'm just going to read one last poem and then I will end the session. Now, this one is actually was published not so long ago. Where is it gone? Give me a second. It's called The Diamond Jug. So you can have a look at it later yourself and you will be able to see the shares. So I'll read you this poem. It's a 4-part poem actually, but it's short, it's not long. Each part is only 14 lines. I'm just telling you, don't be scared. Right? Now, this is a bit of a performance and it's, let me read it. The Diamond Jug, part 1. Imagine that there is a jug made of diamonds and full of life-giving fluids sitting on a table. Now, imagine that someone comes along and says, this jug and everything in it is mine. The owners of the jug reject this claim. A long battle ensues. Finally, the thieves leave. But instead of the precious jug, they leave behind a number of glasses of different shapes, colors, and sizes, each filled with toxic looking and foul smelling contents. What can the owners of the jug do now? The past is lost, only threats abound. What can be done? The Diamond Jug, part 2. The magic jug gone, the rainbows vanish, darkness descends, Mother Earth weeps. The owners fight, kill each other, and as they battle, the liquids spill over. Poisonous rivers, choking air, scarred land, stifle life without discrimination. And as the shadows become darker, the violence and greed grow bitter. As the conflicts spread, the glasses bubble more death. And all harmonies that maintain life mirror patterns of oppression. Is the harmony gone forever? Can something be done to recover? The Diamond Jug, Part 3. Drained by fighting, weakened by disease, at their last breaths, the owners make peace. With battles ending, their anger decreases. Humanity finds some roots in places. The greedy thieves are stripped of feed, the glasses stop their slimy spill. The owners wake up to their present states, help each other, forget the rest. The glasses fade and then reappear. The contents inside begin to clear. The owners observe this real change. Their actions become honest again. And as the owners regain their balance, divisions vanish. The jug re-emerges. Diamond Jug, Part 4. The diamond jug glitters like before. All around it harmonies flow. Mother Earth shakes off her anger, heals herself, and helps her children. Thieves no longer pose a threat. Their contagious greed is now contained. The owners finally learn their lesson. Their integrity, they will never abandon. Life fills the skies once more. Fair fractals grow across the globe. Integrity, love, respect, and inclusion become actions, not just conversation. And the owners sing to remember. Divisions make diamonds disappear. Divisions make diamonds disappear. There's actually an epilogue to this poem as well. I won't read it. It's actually one of the Guddu poems, which is a dialogic poem between a conversation between a father and a son, which presents one interpretation of the poem. I won't read that here today. Instead, I'll stop screening here. And I will leave you guys very shortly with something else. Let me share here with you. So recently I did something crazy. I realized that given the fact that I was born very colonized, and in my life I just grew up and had to do all the things I did just to get the success I wanted, I realized just to decolonize myself, I can't just shed things and change and overnight. It's just not possible. I really have to reinvent myself and recreate myself. And I was going through serious depression and difficulties. Going through serious problems, and I said, instead of trying to kill myself, commit suicide, that's silly. We don't want to commit suicide. What I can do is I can commit a symbolic suicide. So in a sense, I killed myself symbolically, and then I was reborn. I created myself again. So I will share with you the two last poems I wrote with my name, Ahmar Mahboob. I don't write with my name, Ahmar Mahboob, anymore. And then I'll share with you the first poem that I wrote with my new name, Sunny Boy Brumby. And notice, of course, the use of identity in order to reconstruct myself. So instead of doing research on identity and talking about identity in terms of research stuff, which I've done before, and looking at all those frameworks, identity management and all this stuff, what I'm doing instead is using that philosophy and enacting philosophy in life. So what I've realized is that there are no something as pragmatics. It's essentially language is performs. If words are not performed, then they have no meaning. And this is very important in relation to education. So for example, in indigenous education, performance was always there and you could observe the performance. Whereas in literacy-based education, there is no way for us to observe whether what we are reading is actually correct or accurate or true, or if it's been maliciously written to make us mislead us, right? And there's no way that we can observe and do this stuff. So we need to be able to do observational thinking and realization. So I will read you and share with you three of these poems. The one I wrote, the second one, the last one, and then the one I wrote, the first one with my new name. And that should be hopefully the end of the day from me for now. Okay, going back to share screen. Here you go. So here you go.
If we have other sessions. So
oh yes, all right. So we need to really wrap it up then. Okay, I will just read this first one and that's it. I'll share the others later. So I'll leave you with this a thought for us to all think about. I am a child of the earth, kept clean with water. Water which protects me from being consumed by fire. Fire is my life. Fire is my energy. All loved by the same air. I breathe in. I breathe out. We are all children of the earth, whether we walk, crawl, stand, fly, swim, or whatever. All right, with that, I leave us back to your conference, and you realize that we need to continue the work to decolonize our knowledge making and thinking. And it is only through a process of hard work that we will be able to come across and really become post-colonial, because right now post-colonial is a myth. It's a myth. All right, thank you, everybody.